How expensive is Singapore? Well, we've heard Singapore is quite expensive, and we felt really intimidated by that. The fact is that Singapore has been ranked 4 years in a row to be the priciest city to live in. So when we first started planning a trip in Southeast Asia, we took Singapore right off the list because we assumed our budget wouldn't stretch while trying to visit as many countries as possible in our first year. And then we changed our mind. After a year in the region, we saved up and decided that we will go to Singapore anyway. So today we want to show with you how expensive is Singapore.
Please proceed to transfer desk counter C, located in the departure transit lounge of Terminal 1.
So we opt to get a SIM card at the airport. 100 gigabytes of 4G. You can get a SIM card here at the airport. Most of them are 100 gigabytes for 32 Singaporean dollars. Or you can go outside of the airport and get 3 to 5 gigs for $18. So we actually ran out of 3 gigs in Hong Kong 2 days before we were supposed to leave. We had 100 gigs of data and we knew we weren't gonna run out. And it was super convenient because it was like really easy, right at the airport.
You guys just have to come to Jewel.
The Jewel.
Jewel. And it was right there.
Next, we're gonna start off with transportation, considering this is gonna be the first thing you run into as soon as you get off the plane. So transportation. Surprisingly, it only cost us $2 to get into the city from the airport.
Doors are closing.
That's way cheaper than what we thought. Especially compared to other expensive cities like Seoul, South Korea. We paid about $8 US, or Hong Kong, it would cost us around $10 US. So first thing we did is we got an EasyLink card.
Right here.
Just get an EasyLink card. You pay $7, or I paid $24 for 2 of them, and each card has $7 on it, and then the rest is the deposit.
Oh, so you can get it back later.
Yes.
To go to the city where we have to go though.
It can be used on LTR, MTR trains, along with public bus systems.
Click OK.
No, I don't have it.
You don't?
On there, 50. 4 stops first on the subway, transferred another 10 stops. It has taken a little over $1.20 to get from our house to Quarry Bay, right here in Singapore, and we actually have 2 more bus journeys to get where we want to go. By using an EasyLink card, you pay only for the distance traveled, rather than flat rate like everyone else. Bus fares range from $1 to $2.10 Singapore, depending on where you go. We never take a taxi while we're in Singapore. But if you want to take taxis on business days, it will cost around 11 Singapore dollars per 8 kilometers. I think that's quite expensive. So when we went to the one in Kandy in Sri Lanka, it's the Buddha Tooth Temple. It's the same as here, and it's actually, I believe it's the same color as well. So it's the Buddha's tooth, and it's the relic of it, and it's a tooth temple dedicated specifically to his tooth. It's really interesting, really beautiful design. Whether you want to come here during the day or the night, I suggest taking the subway or the metro to the Bay exit, or the Bay metro station, and getting off here at about 5 o'clock.
To me, it's called Bayfront Bubu.
Bayfront, completely free. The whole park is free. So one of the really cool things to do that's completely free, just like this park, is actually at 8 and 9 every night. There's a light show, so it's about 7:50. We started hearing some music, and as soon as you hear the music, just head over to the main super trees, and then you'll see the free light show. Now, let's talk about one of the most intimidating things when traveling. Now, this is something that could set us back and make us completely broke. So, overseas medical costs.
You look so cute in that uniform. Is that even a uniform? It's not a uniform. It's
X-ray blocker,
so cute.
so they can't see my nipples from the X-ray.
Oh, really? Is that for that?
For Singapore, in terms of prices, just for a consultation, it will run around up to 125 Singapore dollars in a private clinic. Appointments with medical specialists can be even more expensive. So based on what we've heard, foreigners can't even get serviced or looked at a public hospital in Singapore. And when we look at these numbers, that means you might end up paying up to a couple thousand US dollars if you end up staying in a hospital overnight in Singapore. And that is the most severe case. That's quite expensive. So for us, having travel insurance is essential. And we just switched from World Nomads to Safety Wing because our coverage went to 250,000 US dollars compared to 100,000 US dollars of World Nomads. This will include the costs related to hospital visits such as nursing services, room and bed, intensive care. Moreover, Safety Wing will always cover the costs if you're charged for utilizing an ambulance in a respective location. It's also super flexible. It's just like having a Netflix plan. You have a monthly payment and you can cancel it whenever you need. This is great for short-term travelers because you can just subscribe for the time that you're going to be traveling and cancel whenever your trip is over.
Okay, so now let's move on to our favorite topic, food and drink. This will add up to your daily cost. For Singapore, food and drink is a little bit controversial. I would not say that it's expensive, and I would not say that it's super cheap. The money can go as far as you want it to be in Singapore. You can easily pay up to about 100 US dollars or just a few dollars, depend on where you choose to eat. So for us, on a daily basis, we normally get food for around 3 to 7 Singapore dollars, another 1 to 2 Singapore dollars for basic drinks and juice. That's when we eat from hawker center or food court, which hygiene standards is good because this country has strict rating for cleanliness.
They got A, B, C and D. C, you don't do business for 6 months because you need to clean up. D, you lose your license.
And it's what we were just told is that, you know, Singapore was trying to clean up the city and clean up the rivers, and they found most of their pollution was coming from the street vendors and the carts and stuff.
They have that rating just like in New York City. I have never seen in any country in Asia that we have been to. In all the countries we have been to in Asia, Singapore is the first country we see that have the hygienic rating just like in New York City. So you can see like, for example, this store has A, the coffee and tea got B. B shouldn't be that bad, yeah?
And what's super nice is if you come to the hawkers late at night, some of them are even open till 2, 3 in the morning. Some of them are even open 24 hours a day. So you have the option to get great food really late at night for very affordable. Breakfast is cheap.
However, if you opt to eat at a restaurant in a business district area, or if you go to eat at famous neighborhood, the price can be up to about 15 to 25 Singapore dollars for food per one person. Sri Lanka.
With condensed milk. We call it bandung.
I love this one.
It's not. I like it because it's not too sweet.
It's not. Yeah, that is the reason why I like it. Yeah.
Good tea flavor, but it's not like overly powered tea.
We can't skip the topic about coffee and tea in Singapore. Because based on our experience, Singapore got some of the best coffee and milk tea that we have ever tried.
Interesting. Here in Singapore, there's over 28 different ways to order coffee. So you have black coffee, black coffee with condensed milk, black coffee with powdered milk, black coffee with powdered milk, no sugar, black coffee powdered milk, 3 sugars. You only have 1 sugar or 3 sugars.
We never go to Western style coffee or a chain like Starbucks at all. But if you want to, it can set you back at about 5 Singapore dollars or 6 Singapore dollars. In some other expensive cities that we visit like Seoul, South Korea or Hong Kong, food and drink is even more expensive than food and drink that we have in Singapore.
So good. It's vanilla wafer with raspberry vanilla ice cream for $1.
What? So what we are going to be having is the original matcha. The first one, which is also
This is so cool.
made with pork.
It's really good.
And I'll tell you all about the matcha.
Love it. You got to be pleased.
For the herbal drink, 180 for the water.
Do you know that the water in Singapore is safe to drink? So you can basically drink from the tap water in Singapore. In that case, you can save your cash and some plastic. Instead of buying single-use water bottles, drinking in Singapore is extremely expensive, especially if you go to drink in downtown area of Singapore. Cocktail can cost up to about 25 Singapore dollars. A pint of beer can cost around 12 Singapore dollars. But if you buy beer from grocery store, it can cost only about 5 Singapore dollars per bottle only. And that is normally the case that we go for when we want to drink. Okay, so now let's talk about some of the biggest expense while traveling. We will talk about housing and accommodation in Singapore. For us, we are a big fan of Airbnb, so we go with it as well in Singapore. So we stay at a listing called Jimmy's Place, which we pay about $267 for 10 days. We had a private room in the house, which we have to share the kitchen and the bathroom with the host. The house is super clean actually, and it looks even better than from the picture itself. The only drawback about this place is just the fact that we live in Choa Chu Kang, which is pretty far from everything. And especially it's far from the main tourist attraction.
So it's not too close to everything, but it was within our budget and it looked nice, so that's kind of the option we had.
There are over 12,000 listings to choose from, with the price range varies up to even a couple hundred $US a night in Singapore. Let's see, for example, if you want to book just a week in Singapore, how much would it cost you? And as you can see here, it's not that bad for the rental cost in Singapore. Even when you want all the entire place for yourself, meaning that you don't have to share the room or the whole house with others. You can also still find some of the cheaper place to stay in Singapore as well from Airbnb. But be careful because they might be in inconvenient neighborhoods, just like in our case.
If somebody's going to be staying in Singapore for a little bit, I do not suggest staying where we are. We are staying about an hour outside of everything that we want to do. But on Airbnb, the map didn't show that it was that far out, and we just didn't know that it was an hour ride. And the subway is quite slow here. It's not like an express train. So we have arrived after about an hour journey on the subway.
3 hours each day spent on train and on bus. So some of you guys might not feel quite familiar with Airbnb and you normally go for the hotel. The hotel price in Singapore range varies as well, just like from Airbnb. Let's see, if you want to book the room for a night staying in a hotel, you can find the listing cost as low as $18 per night. Or if you want to guarantee yourself being close to the downtown area, you might have to pay up to $100 a night. But that means you can save your traveling time even much better.
So they have 3 attractions here. They have the Flower Dome, they have the Cloud Forest, $28 to get in
For both of them?
both of them.
Okay.
So these are the main attractions here. I actually was quite worried, but it's actually worth paying the $28 to come in, especially if you like taking photos, because there's so many photogenic spots in here. So if you buy the entrance tickets to Cloud Forest, it comes with tickets to the Flower Dome for $28. So it's something for you to think about. So it totally depends on what you would compare the cost of traveling Singapore with. It's certainly not as cheap as other countries in Southeast Asia, but it's still a lot more affordable than we expected, especially when you compare it to our trip in Eastern Asian countries like South Korea and Hong Kong. The purpose of us making this video is to encourage you to travel to Singapore, and we think it will help you figure out exactly what you should be paying while traveling. If you want to learn more about Singapore, make sure you check out other videos from us and let us know what you think as well.